Hi guys and welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing the top 5 questions we get asked about backpacking for beginners. So the first question we get asked a lot is footwear. What footwear do I need and how do I choose my first pair of hiking boots or hiking shoes? The first decision you're going to need to make is what would you prefer, a pair of hiking boots or shoes? Obviously these are for two slightly different purposes. A boot is going to give you far more support around the ankle, which is obvious because of this extended ankle cuff that comes up, but also in the sole. Boots tend to have a slightly stiffer sole, which is going to give your foot a bit more support when carrying heavy weights or doing sort of uneven terrain. However, you could also look at a shoe. If you're doing slightly shorter miles and want a little bit of more freedom in your ankle, then this could be a really good option for you. Shoes come in loads of different fits and shapes and sizes. We've got a nice leather one here from Meindl, which is the Philadelphia. You can also get ones that are made of synthetic materials, which are a little bit more breathable as well. So if you're looking to use something in a warmer climate than the UK, a shoe could be a really good option. Or if you're looking for something that can do a bit of everything and you want to be able to use it in the summer and the winter for short walks, a couple miles a day, this could be a really good option. Moving up, we've got something like this, which is the Scarpa Rush Trek, which would be considered a lightweight boot. It's still quite stiff and quite rigid. We have just done a video on this, so you can go and check that out if you want to know a little bit more. And it's the perfect sort of in-between when we're looking at these two bits of footwear in front of me. It's stiff enough that you could use it for most walking in the United Kingdom other than winter walking. You could do backpacking and overnight trips with this boot, mountain days and also long day walks in the lowlands. It's a really good all-rounder. And then we've got this guy here, which is the Altberg Tethera. We've got it in the medium fit here. It does come in a few different width fittings, including wide and extra wide, which is great for anyone with a wider foot. The step up here is we're moving to a full grain leather upper with a really stiff resolable sole. This is great for anyone looking for a multi-day trekking boot. Also anything that you're looking for like harder terrain, so winter conditions. This boot is not crampon compatible, but we are getting close to that sort of lowland winter conditions. This boot would be absolutely fine. So the questions you really need to ask yourself is what are you going to be doing and when are you going to be doing it? If you're looking for a boot that does almost everything, it's a great all-rounder, but it's still light, then there's something like the Rush Trek or the Meindl Respond would be a really good option for you. If you're looking for something a little bit heavier and something a little bit more durable, something that's going to last you a long time, and you don't mind carrying that extra bit of weight on your feet, something similar to the Altberg Tethera here, or maybe something like the Meindl Bhutan or Scarpa Ranger would be another really good option. And then if you're looking for something that's lightweight, nice and comfortable, can be thrown on for a day walk or a couple miles in the afternoon on both hardcore and sort of loose terrain, then a shoe would be a really nice option for you. Picking your footwear is very much personal preference, and we do recommend you come into either one of our shops or another footwear fitting store just so you can get the right fit. It's not easy sometimes to find a boot that fits you perfectly, but we'd be more than happy to help, and certainly do pop into the store and ask any questions you might have. Are walking socks essential, or are they just a bit of a scam? Well, the answer is they're very much worth it. We would suggest that buying a good pair of walking socks will either make or break your brand new walking boots. There's no point in buying a £200 pair of nice leather boots if you're not going to put a good sock in them. It will make a massive difference to the comfort of the boot and even make a difference to the fit of the boot as well, and it could be make or break on whether or not you get blisters when breaking in your new boots. So what's the difference between a hiking sock and any other standard sock? Well, it's actually to do with the materials they're made out of and also the padding that you get on these socks. So we've got two brands here, Bridgedale, Smartwool. There are an abundance of hiking sock brands and they're all really good and all follow a very similar premise. These socks here use merino wool, which is really good for not taking an odour, wicking away moisture, and for comfort and cushioning. When we talk about wicking away moisture, what that means is it stops your feet getting quite as sweaty and clammy inside the boot. Obviously, although Gore-Tex is breathable, a leather boot, a Gore-Tex sock covered in leather is not going to breathe as well as if you didn't have one at all. So having a sock that can move moisture away from your feet will prevent you having blisters. It'll be a more comfortable experience, and it's just far nicer when you can take your boots off at the end of the night and your feet aren't horrible and clammy. You also get an extra bit of comfort from these kind of socks. What brands do is they put cushioning in the important areas. So that is like the forefoot, so under your forefoot, and in the heel of the boot, in the heel of your foot, and it comes up the ankle here as well, a common place where people will get blisters on the back of their foot. This gives you a bit more padding and it makes having that issue a little bit less likely. If you were going to try and use your boots with like a standard sock that you'd wear with your day shoes, you'll probably find it's not going to respond as well. You're going to end up with blisters or slip in the boot won't fit properly, or you're going to end up with really horrible, sweaty, nasty socks at the end of your walk. These socks dry really quickly as well, which is great, so you can actually stuff these down the bottom of your sleeping bag overnight, and they should be pretty dry by the morning, which is awesome if you want to shed down on weight a little bit and wear your socks the next day because they didn't get soaking wet. We would also recommend either bringing a hiking sock with you if you're coming in for a fitting, or purchasing one alongside your walking boots. If you come in to have your boots fitted with a thin pair of day socks and you intend on putting hiking socks in there, these can significantly change the shape and the fit of the boot. So it's worth getting the boot fitted with the socks you're going to be wearing when you're hiking. The next question we get asked a lot is, what size rucksack should I get? And well, this depends a lot on what you're going to be doing. There's lots of different options for you and loads of different sizes. So let's just have a quick look at what size fits what task the best. For short day hikes, we're probably looking at something between 11 litres and 28 litres. Both these packs would be absolutely fine for a day trip. It just depends a little bit on how much you're going to be packing and for how many people you're going to be packing. If it's just for yourself and you're just looking to carry a waterproof and a bit of lunch, 11 litres should suffice. But if you're carrying a bit more, you want a bit more warm clothing for during the winter, or if you're carrying for more than one person, then going up to a 20 to 28 litre rucksack wouldn't do any harm. You can always compress these sacks down, so if you don't fill them, that's not a problem. But sometimes it's worth having a bit more space and a bit more versatility from your pack. If you've spent a little bit of money and got some really light kit, and you're looking to do an overnight trip, you could look at a bag that's around 35 to 45 litres. With this smaller kit, you'll be able to fit a lot more into these packs, and you'll be able to keep your kit a little bit lighter. And then we move on to our 50 to 65 litre packs. These are perfect for multi-day treks. They've got really good low carrying suspension systems, so the back system is designed to carry a lot of weight, and they're also big enough to fit all the essentials you'll need and even a little bit more. If you're not fortunate enough to have spent a bit of money and got some really small packable kit, these are another great option for overnight trips. You've got a bit more room for slightly bulkier kit, but also they're designed to be compressible as well. So you can simply just use the compression straps on the side of these packs to make them a little bit smaller. As you can see, this is quite nice and narrow at the moment because it's compressed down. But you could expand this as well to get a bit more in it. So when choosing a rucksack, it's worth having a little look at what your kit's like. If you've been able to spend a bit of money and get some smaller kit, especially with your sleeping bag and your roll mat, your sleep system tends to take up a lot of your pack. If you've been able to get a nice small sleeping bag and a nice small roll mat, you might be able to move more towards a 40 to 45 litre rucksack. If you're using a slightly chunkier synthetic bag with a long roll mat or a chunkier foam roll mat, you might need to have a look at a 65. It all depends a little bit on what you're after and how much versatility you want out of your pack. If you think it's going to be used for more than one night at a time, then going for a slightly bigger pack with those compression straps on them wouldn't be a bad idea. If you're looking to keep your kit light, going for a slightly smaller bag restricts your options, but it does mean that you won't pack unnecessary items. What sleeping bag do I need and why? Well, there's lots of different options when it comes to sleeping bags, and just like footwear, there's lots of different shapes and sizes. The first thing to consider when you're buying a sleeping bag is what are you going to use it for and when. If you're looking for a sleeping bag to be used in the winter, you're going to need to look for a much warmer temperature rating, whereas if you want to use it for the summer, you're going to need to look for a much lower one. If you buy a winter bag, it's worth noting that you will find this very restrictive. If you buy one of these, which is like an 800 fill, then you're going to be using this mostly in the winter, and it's going to be way too warm for the summer. I'm too warm sat in this studio right now. If you want to use something all year round, sometimes it's better to buy a slightly cooler sleeping bag, so something that doesn't go into quite so many, the lower numbers, and then buy a sleeping bag liner as well. This will give you a little bit more versatility when you're using the sleeping bag, and mean you can use the sleeping bag for more time in the year. The other thing to consider is what shape and size you want your sleeping bag to be. This is really important because if a sleeping bag doesn't fit you, it's going to take a lot longer to warm up, and it's also not going to be as comfortable for you as a user. Sleeping bags come just like footwear in many different shapes and sizes, so it's worth picking the right one for you. They come in different lengths and widths, and they also come in different shapes. The most common of which are rectangular and mummy. Mummy is far better for backpacking because it's a slightly narrower shape. It takes less time to warm up, but it also locks in the heat a little bit better as well. It will shed a few grams off the weight of your pack as well because it obviously uses less material. Rectangular sleeping bags are better for people that need a little bit more space around their feet. You will have a slightly heavier pack size, but it might be a slightly more comfortable sleeping experience for you if that's something you're into. So that was a little look at what kind of sleeping bags we'd say to choose from. Top tips are to pick the right shape and size for you. Look at the temperature rating and make sure you get one that you can use for the majority of the stuff you want to use it for. If you're looking for a winter bag only, that's great, go for a nice warm bag, but if you want something you want to use all throughout the year, it's worth getting something a little bit cooler and then adding a sleeping bag liner if you need it. And finally, how do I keep my kit dry when it's raining and I'm going hiking? There's a few different ways to do this, the most common of which is using a rain cover, something like this one here from Osprey. What this does is it goes over the outside of your rucksack and it acts like a waterproof cover for the rucksack itself, and it stops any rain getting into the material. This is great, it keeps out the majority of the rain. However, if you're out for a number of days and you're only using this in really heavy rain, there is obviously a chance that it could leak down the back system and into the rucksack. The other option you could use is dry bags. So we've got a few different sizes and shapes here. These are really good for individually wrapping different items, so stove can go in one, your sleeping bag in another, and it will keep each individual item perfectly dry. The only downside to this is the rucksack will get really, really wet. A wet rucksack does tend to be a lot heavier as well, so you could look at using these in conjunction with each other. What that means is you're going to keep your rucksack nice and dry, and you've also got the backup of having your dry bags on the inside. That means that everything you're carrying is going to stay fully dry, and you don't have to worry even in really heavy, consistent rain over a number of days. You don't have to use individual dry sacks, however it is a really good way of organising your pack. You can just buy one big one that fits the entire bag and use it almost like a big dustbin bag inside your rucksack, and you can just put all your items in there, seal up at the top, and just have one big dry bag that has everything in it. I personally choose to use a number of different dry bags so I can allocate different colours to different items. It helps me organise my kit. We're going to be talking about that in Techie Tip Tuesday in the coming weeks. But yeah, so if you're going out for a day, a rain cover is a great option. It makes getting to your items a lot quicker and easier. It's also a lot quicker and easier to stow and put on. If you're going out for a few days, I'd highly recommend buying a couple of dry bags, especially for essential items like spare clothes, sleeping equipment, that kind of thing. And if you're going out for a number of days and you want to be really safe, there's no harm in using a waterproof cover to keep your bag from getting soaking wet and heavy, and then using dry bags as a bit of a backup plan within your rucksack. It will definitely keep all your stuff dry, and it will give you a bit of peace of mind when you're walking in that weather that you're going to have a nice dry night's sleep at the end of it. Great, so that was a really quick look at some of the suggestions we'd have for your questions when it comes to the top 5 questions we get asked about backpacking. I thought I'd throw another one in here at the end, which is something that concerns a lot of people, and that is what to do about water. Water can be really heavy, and it can also take up a lot of space in your rucksack. We tend to use bladders or soft bottles because they're a little bit lighter than your hard plastic bottles. I would recommend, depending on how far you're walking, carrying enough to get you through the day, and then plan your route strategically so you can actually fill up water en route. Either using a purification system like tablets, or if you're using a filtration system like an inline filter from Osprey, or even one like Platypus is one where you screw your water bottle onto the end of it, squeeze it through into another container, and that purifies the water as it comes through and filters any issues out of that water. It will be a good way to save weight, it saves a bit of faff as well, and it also keeps your pack a little bit lighter. It does take up a lot of room inside your pack as well, so you could find that it sheds down a little bit of pack size as well for you, which would be ideal. So that's just a little extra tip for you. Plan your route ahead of time and see if you can pick up water en route, and it will save you carrying quite as much towards the end of the day. Thank you very much guys for watching. If you like what you've seen, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps us out, and drop a like if you can. If you've got any questions or any other tips you'd like to share with the community, drop them in the comment section below, and we will see you next time. It's so hot. Flipping heck.